We have been joined by Haitham Nasser, who is a Middle East expert and Palestinian journalist. Thank you for joining us and being part of this very important conversation. A major development that has unfolded and will continue to unfold in the days to follow. It is a developing story, but the 20-point peace plan given by Donald Trump after his meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you have to say about that? Do you think it's going to be a real, practical resolution for this conflict, or is it just going to be another effort to stop the Israeli ethnical cleansing?
Thank you for inviting me, first of all, but I am afraid it will be neither of the options because these options, ending the war, permanent ceasefire, or end of the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis, are not on the agenda of Trump and Netanyahu. What's on the agenda is to bring the prisoners or the hostages back. This is what Trump wants from Netanyahu because there is a pressure by the Israeli lobby or the Jewish lobby inside US for this purpose, because this is the general purpose by all the Israeli citizens, not only Netanyahu government. On the other hand, Netanyahu agenda is to give Trump what he wants, save face for him inside American public opinion, and get what he wants also, which is to get a green light to continue the war in Gaza after the hostages are released by Hamas through a truce deal, not permanent ceasefire deal. What is being proposed now have been proposed before, but somehow it comes to a different direction after Netanyahu meets Trump. Netanyahu met Trump 3 times after Trump reached to office, and every time he comes back with more fruitful results, with more weaponry. So I don't think we are optimistic about permanent ceasefire. Maybe temporary ceasefire, hostages will go out, and the Palestinians in Gaza might get some relief by letting the aid enter. But still, the next day scenario is not decided. There was a proposal for the 20-player governing body led by Tony Blair. There is other proposals from Egypt, which is a technocrat government that rules Gaza until the Palestinian Authority is ready to reach an agreement with the new setup in Gaza. But none of this is accepted by Netanyahu, and it's also not accepted by the Americans. So what Trump is doing, he's campaigning diplomatically to ease the pressure, which was building up during the recent months, and it concluded with a group of the Muslim leaders meeting him in the UN Assembly. But that doesn't force him to make a deal in the coming weeks. The meeting with Netanyahu might reach to the level of a truce deal, maybe framed as a first step or a first stage in a full peace plan. But do we think that Trump will pressurize Netanyahu to the extent of making a full peace plan? I don't think so. There are other factors also, which are the extremists in Netanyahu government. So even if Netanyahu wants to sign a peace plan or a truce of 1 year or 2 years plan with Hamas until he goes back to the next election, which is in October 2026, he cannot do that because a lot of the extremists in his government are opposing any peace plan with Hamas and even pushing Netanyahu to occupy Gaza fully and destroy the left homes in Gaza and push Palestinians to go outside Gaza to Egypt or other countries. Those
Haitham?
extremist members of the government will leave the government if Netanyahu signs a full deal of peace with Hamas. So he will play between the two areas.
Right, Haitham, there's another aspect that I'd like you to comment on. That is that Benjamin Netanyahu has been accused, and the warrants issued by the International Criminal Court as well, because of the war crimes that he has committed. Even though this peace plan is presented, the US president has shown optimism that this will result in an end to the Gaza war and an end to the Israeli aggression. But when we talk about the International Criminal Court issuing arrest warrants for Netanyahu, or the world condemning or holding him accountable for the war crimes that he has committed, do you think he will be held accountable even if a peace process is implemented or such a framework that is proposed?
I don't think so, because it's still the Israeli leaders are protected by American veto in the UN. They are protected by American influence outside the UN. So we have seen some other Israeli leaders in the past which were accused of war crimes, but nobody have يعني implemented any of the decisions against them. Netanyahu has a lot of layers of kind of immunity. One of the layers is the American support. There are a lot of layers that Netanyahu can use, but it affects the image of Netanyahu. It affects the image of Israel in general, to have your prime minister having to fly between the countries, the skies of the countries who are allowing you to fly on their through their skies instead of the normal route for your airplane. It's a pressure. I don't think Americans will implement any of the laws. The only voices in America we
Right.
heard in that direction were for Mamdani, the nominee for New York mayor. If he gets elected, he promised to arrest Netanyahu next time he visits New York. But other than this, other states in America are not really vocal about implementing the international law against Netanyahu. So there
Right.
are a lot of
Haitham, that being said, right, Haitham, that being said, what security landscape does it leave in the Middle East, in your opinion? Because we know how Israel continues with impunity with whatever it wants to do, and there's no accountability for it. What's the security landscape do you see in the Middle East for all the other states that could become at risk of this Israeli aggression?
this depends on how the other countries in the region or the powers in the region play their cards. For example, if Iran goes for any aggression against Israel in the coming weeks, as we have heard some news or rumors that there are preparations for a new war, this will affect the region in the wrong direction. It means there will be more no stability, less stability, less peace talks, and more it will play more in the favor of Netanyahu and the extremist government he is leading. While if the powers in the region, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Egypt, Turkey, also Pakistan, communicate more, cooperate more to push for isolation of Israel, the things will go in the other direction. So these are the two scenarios. Netanyahu have succeeded in leading the region into the maximum tension during the war against Iran. And now the other powers are trying to de-escalate that tension towards more peaceful and cooperation kind of deal. But Netanyahu is still waiting 1 year until the next election, which is in October 2026. So he needs time. He doesn't need to be pushed to go for early election, which will be negatively affecting his chances to be re-elected. As you mentioned before, that he is not welcomed internationally except in US and few other countries. So his only chance to protect his reputation or future survival, even because he's also facing a lot of court cases in the Israeli court, some of them for corruption, some of them for misuse of political power, some of them for stopping of publication of different files. These all crimes will hunt Netanyahu if he loses next election. So it's a survival war for Netanyahu. He has to win more and more time until the next election is coming. And being in power till next election is coming, it will allow him to allocate a lot of budget for different forces which can support him in the next election. If his government collapse before that, he cannot do any of that, then he might lose the next election, which is
Well, unfortunately,
predictable.
very unfortunate that we're seeing the Palestinians paying the price of Netanyahu's politics. Haitham Nasser, thank you for joining us and being part of this conversation. Of course, we appreciate that a lot.